Judge Frank Caprio had seen thousands of cases in his 40-year career, but FBI agent Marcus Thompson, who appeared before him that Tuesday morning, was the strangest case he had ever encountered. The man was too calm, too prepared, and too scared. In Caprio's deep breath, who could have known that this simple traffic case would expose one of America's darkest secrets? Judge Frank Caprio had seen thousands of cases in his 40-year career, but FBI agent Marcus Thompson, who appeared before him that Tuesday morning, was the strangest case he had ever encountered. The man was too calm, too prepared, and too scared. In Caprio's deep breath, who could have known that this simple traffic case would expose one of America's darkest secrets? Those entering courtroom 4 of the Miami Federal Courthouse that morning expected an ordinary traffic violation. Hearing, the air was hot, the air conditioning hummed, and files were piled on Judge Caprio's desk as usual. Pictures representing America's justice system hung on the walls, while mostly law students and curious citizens sat in the back rows. When the door opened at exactly 10:30, a tall, handsome man entered. His navy blue suit looked Italian-made, his polished shoes showed handcrafted leather, and the FBI badge on his chest gleamed with gold trim. Marcus Thompson looked like a typical federal agent, athletic build, sharp jawline, penetrating gaze. However, Caprio's 40 years of experience whispered something to him. There was a strange hesitation in Thompson's walk. His steps were too measured, as if every movement had been calculated in advance. His eyes constantly scanned the exit doors, and his hands trembled slightly. Caprio had seen dozens of FBI agents. Throughout his career, they're usually confident, relaxed, and in control. But this man was different. What reason could there be for being so nervous over a simple traffic ticket? "Mr. Thompson," said Caprio, adjusting his glasses and opening the file, "you were caught going 85 miles per hour on State Road 95. The speed limit is 65 miles per hour. Is this correct?" Thompson leaned forward, his voice extremely controlled but sounding somewhat artificial to Caprio's ear. "Yes, Your Honor. I plead guilty. I want to pay my fine. Too simple, too ready, too unusual." Normal people usually made up excuses. Family emergency, rushing to the hospital, important meeting. But Thompson offered no explanation. He was just pleading guilty and wanting to pay his fine. Was this attitude part of FBI training, or was he hiding something else? When Caprio opened the file, the first thing that caught his eye was Thompson's address information on his driver's license. Quantico, Virginia. Living near the FBI Academy was normal. Most agents lived there or around Washington, D.C., but the second page made him pause. Thompson's vehicle registrations were extremely interesting. 2023 BMW M5 competition, 2022 Mercedes-AMG GT, 2021 Audi RS7. Each of these cars was worth over $100,000. An FBI agent's annual salary typically ranged from $80 to $120,000. How he could afford such luxury cars had aroused Caprio's curiosity. Maybe he had inherited money. Maybe his wife earned very well. Or, "Mr. Thompson," said Caprio, not lifting his eyes from the file, "how many years have you been serving in the FBI?" 15 years, Your Honor." Although his voice seemed calm, Caprio noticed a slight tremor. It didn't make sense for an agent who had worked at the FBI for 15 years to be so nervous in court. These people testify in courts as part of their training. They talk to judges. Which department? Thompson's gulp was audible in the courtroom's silence. Counterterrorism, Special Operations. Counterterrorism Special Operations. This was one of America's most sensitive units. Agents working in this department had access to the country's biggest secrets. Foreign terrorist organizations, spies, internal threats. They would closely monitor all of them. Someone in such a position being so nervous was concerning. Caprio finally lifted his eyes and looked at Thompson. The man was sweating. Beads of sweat had formed on his forehead and temples. Although it was hot in Miami, the air-conditioned courtroom temperature was around 72 degrees. There was no explainable reason for sweating this much. "Mr. Thompson, I'm going to ask you a question, and I want you to answer honestly. Did this speeding violation occur while you were on duty? Thompson's lips trembled. His eyes shifted for a moment. No, it was personal travel. Where were you going? This question seemed to catch Thompson off guard. His eyes shifted left and right, examined the ceiling moldings, then focused on a fixed point: to meet my family. Where does your family live? Key West. Caprio visualized the map in his mind. There were various routes from Quantico, Virginia to Key West, Florida. The shortest and most logical route would be to follow I-95 south, then switch to I-75. State Road 95 was on Florida's east coast, a longer and more indirect route. Why had he chosen this route? Mr. Thompson, the shortest route from Quantico to Key West goes through I-75. Why did you use State Road 95? The sweat beads on Thompson's forehead became more pronounced. He brought his hand to his forehead and wiped. There was traffic. I wanted to use an alternative route. A lie. Caprio knew this was a lie. GPS systems automatically show the fastest route, updating according to traffic conditions. A professional FBI agent telling such a simple lie was extremely suspicious. But there was something deeper. This man's fear stemmed from something much bigger than an ordinary traffic ticket. Mr. Thompson, where were you really going at 2:30 a.m. when you were caught? I told you to visit my family at 2:30 in the morning. Thompson's voice cracked. I wanted to get an early start to avoid traffic. This explanation didn't make sense either. Traffic was already minimal on highways after midnight. Besides, normal people would start their vacation trips in the morning hours, rather than spending the night on the road. Caprio stood up and began walking slowly around the courtroom. This was his thinking ritual. He would move when solving complex cases. His 40 years of experience told him this man was hiding something big. And whatever it was, it could be related to national security. Mr. Thompson, was there anyone else? In your car? No. Are you sure? Thompson's hand involuntarily moved to his pocket, then quickly pulled back. Yes, I'm sure. This movement hadn't escaped Caprio's notice. Why did he reach for his pocket? What was there that he was being so sensitive about? What's in your pocket? Nothing. Can you show me? Thompson froze. His face turned white as chalk. Everyone in the courtroom held their breath. A normal traffic case wouldn't reach this point, but Caprio's instincts told him this man was part of something much bigger. Mr. Thompson, I'm asking you again, what's in your pocket? Thompson's hand was shaking. Just a phone. Which phone? The official phone issued by the FBI. Yes, can you show me? When Thompson pulled out the phone, Caprio's eye immediately caught a detail. The phone wasn't a standard FBI phone. The model was newer, the brand was different, and most importantly, it had two separate SIM card slots, and both were occupied. Mr. Thompson, can you explain why FBI agents would need to use dual SIM phones? Thompson's face paled, his voice began to tremble. I for operational security. Which operation? Classified. I can't tell. It's classified information. This answer made sense. FBI agents did indeed work on classified operations, but Thompson's behavior was different from normal classified operation stress. This man was in fear. In panic, Caprio returned to his desk and pulled out a folder from his drawer. When Thompson saw this, he completely panicked, trying to stand up. Mr. Thompson, please remain seated. Your Honor, I want to leave. It's not time to leave yet. I have more questions for you. Caprio opened the folder. Inside was a fax he had received that morning about Thompson. It had come from the FBI Internal Security Division. Mr. Thompson, I'm going to ask you another question. Have there been any cash deposits to your bank account in the last 3 months? Thompson's mouth hung open. His eyes were spinning. This has nothing to do with this. Whether it's relevant or not is for me to determine. This is a courtroom and I'm the judge. I'm asking questions. I want you to answer. I want a lawyer. These words had a bombshell effect on the courtroom. Law students in the back rows were looking at each other. An FBI agent requesting a lawyer for a simple traffic ticket? It was now clear that the situation had much deeper dimensions. Mr. Thompson, this is just a traffic case. Why do you want a lawyer? Thompson's voice had turned to a whisper. His hands were trembling uncontrollably. Because the questions you're asking. Yes, I think you're going to accuse me of other things. What things? Thompson hung his head. His shoulders were shaking. It was obvious he was crying. The silence in the courtroom was deafening. Caprio approached and spoke in a soft voice. Mr. Thompson, in your 15-year FBI career, are there things you've done that you regret? This question had crushed Thompson. He raised his head, tears beginning to flow from his eyes. Your Honor, yes, I'm listening. I made very big mistakes. What mistakes? Thompson's voice was shaky and hoarse. If I tell, my family will be in danger. Who is threatening your family? They're everywhere. They're watching us. Which organization? I can't tell. I have children. I have a wife. Caprio turned back and pulled out another file from his desk. When Thompson saw this, he completely collapsed. Where did you find this? The file contained Thompson's bank statement extracts, mysterious transfers he had received in the last 3 months, encrypted emails, and most surprisingly, records of his visits to the Russian consulate. Mr. Thompson, this morning I received a call from the FBI Internal Security Division. I learned that an investigation has been opened about you. Thompson's world had collapsed. How did they find out? Find out what, Mr. Thompson? I'll tell you. But please protect my family. They're innocent. Only I. Who are they? Russians. SVR. GRU. I don't know which unit, but Russians. Everyone in the courtroom held their breath. An agent from one of America's most prestigious federal institutions was beginning to collapse in a simple traffic case. And talking about Russian spies. Mr. Thompson, please tell me from the beginning. What happened to you? Thompson took a deep breath. He had nothing left to hide. Your Honor, I've been an FBI agent for 15 years, but for the last 5 years, I've also been working for other forces. Incredible. Gasps rose from the hall. Caprio raised his hand to ensure silence. Which forces? Russian Federal Security Service, SVR, Foreign Intelligence Service. This confession had a bombshell effect on the courtroom. One of America's biggest enemies had an agent with access to the highest level operations within the FBI for how long? 5 years. Exactly 5 years and 3 months. How did it start? Tell me in detail. Thompson's story was complex enough to rival movie scripts. What began as an innocent-seeming friendship had gradually gotten out of control and turned him into a traitor selling America's most valuable secrets to the enemy. In 2019, I attended an international security conference in Moscow. The FBI had sent me to give a presentation on terrorism. There I met someone named Dmitry Volkov. He introduced himself as a private security expert. He was very charismatic, very knowledgeable, very cultured. His English was perfect. He knew a lot about America. What did you talk about? Very innocent things at first. Sports, music, travel. He talked about Russian culture, showed me around Moscow. He took me to very nice restaurants, bought expensive gifts. I also gave general information about the FBI's working methods. Nothing secret. Things that were public. Then, after I returned to America, he didn't cut contact with me. He was sending emails, sending gifts. He remembered my birthday, knew my wife's name, asked about my children's ages. He seemed very sincere, very friendly. Caprio was taking notes. This was the classic beginning of an intelligence operation. First getting close to the target, building trust, then gradually starting to make demands. What was his first request? 6 months later, he asked for a very small thing, a general list of which terrorist organizations the FBI was tracking as priority. He said it was for academic research. It seemed so innocent. Did you give it? I gave it. Only general, public things. But I realized later that this was a test to understand how much I could cooperate. After I gave it, he thanked me a lot, sent a big gift, an expensive watch, and he started asking for more information. Thompson's story described step by step how he was deceived, how he fell into the trap each piece of information became the key to accessing bigger information. Each cooperation opened the door to bigger demands. What information did you give? In detail. Small things at first. Which FBI stations in which countries were active? which operations would be announced. To the public, which terrorist organization leaders we were close to catching. What did you receive in return? Thompson hung his head in shame. Money. A lot of money. I accumulated $1 million in my Swiss bank account. Just money? No. There were also threats, very terrible threats. What kind of? Threats my family, my wife Sarah, my children Emma and Jake. They were sending their pictures, videos they took while passing by my house, photos of my children leaving school, the market where my wife shopped. They knew everything. Caprio's expression hardened. This wasn't just a betrayal story. It was also an organized crime operation, targeting a family. What exactly did they tell you? They said bad things can happen to your beautiful family. There are many accidents in traffic in America, many burglaries in homes. Many bad things are done to children. It wasn't very clear, but the message was obvious. What did you do after these threats? I got scared, very scared, but I couldn't stop anymore. They had so much against me. If I went to the FBI and told them everything, they would arrest me immediately. What information did you give? Later major operations. Thompson's confessions revealed the extent of the gaps in America's security systems. Every word was a disaster in terms of national security. In 2020, during COVID, details of cyber operations against China, which Chinese hackers we were tracking, which of their systems we had infiltrated, anything else. In 2021, operations related to Iran, which Iranian agents we had identified, which of our stations in the Middle East were active, terror operations, everything about Al-Qaeda and ISIS, which cells we had identified, which leaders we were targeting, the identities of which of our agents in Europe. Each confession was horrifying Caprio more and more. This man had single-handedly caused major damage to America's global security. Operations, secret agents, worldwide, names of our agents operating in Moscow, Beijing, Tehran, even Europe, identity-changing methods, communication protocols. Did anyone get hurt as a result of this information? Thompson was crying now. I don't know, I hope not. But in 2022, 2 of our agents were caught in Moscow. I wonder, what was your last operation? Last week, they asked for information about the routes and timing of arms shipments to Ukraine, which ports they would leave from, which ships they would be transported on, routes, security details. Did you give it? I didn't give it. I couldn't stand it anymore. If this information was given, people would die. That's why I was running away. Where to, I didn't know. I just wanted to get away from Miami and leave. But they're everywhere. They're following me. Caprio stood up and looked at the courtroom. This incident had shaken not just a small courthouse in Miami, but America's national security. Mr. Thompson, how many more agents are there within the FBI? Who else? I don't know. I never asked. But according to what Dimitri said, I'm not alone. There are others. In which departments? They said there are some in the CIA too, in the NSA too, even in the Pentagon. They've built a big network. This information had shaken even Caprio. If Thompson was telling the truth, America's security systems were full of holes like Swiss cheese. We need to formally record these confessions of yours. I'll inform FBI internal security, CIA, NSA, all of them. I'll also have your family put under protection immediately. Thompson looked hopefully. Will they really be protected? Yes. You'll be placed in the witness protection program. What about me? Will I live in prison? Probably. But your sentence might be reduced because you cooperated. Most importantly, you have a chance to serve your country. Thompson was crying now. Your Honor, I made very big mistakes, but I never wanted anyone to get hurt. I was just trying to protect my family. I understand. So what do you want to do now? I want to tell everything, the whole network, all the contacts, all the operations, Dimitri's phone numbers, email addresses, meeting places, money transfer methods. I know everything. Do you know the other agents? No, but there were other names in Dimitri's phone. Code names: Eagle, Lion, Hawk. These are probably other agents. Caprio nodded. This courtroom today became not just a place for a traffic case, but a place that exposed one of the biggest betrayals in America's security history. Mr. Thompson, yes, Your Honor, and I'm responsible for this, and you, with this confession, perhaps gained a chance to protect your country again. Thompson raised his head. A ray of hope appeared in his eyes for the first time. Do you really think so? Yes, the courage you showed in finally deciding to do the right thing. But we have a very difficult process ahead. You'll need to tell everything. Remember every detail. I'm ready, Your Honor. If necessary, I'll take a polygraph test. If necessary, I'll face Dimitri. I'm ready to tell everything. Caprio took off his glasses and cleaned them. He had never seen such a case in his 40-year career. A simple speeding ticket had exposed America's biggest security breach. Mr. Thompson, I'm going to make a decision that will make this courtroom historic. I'm dismissing your traffic ticket because today, much more important justice was served here. Thompson was surprised. Your Honor, you became the first high-ranking agent to confess to double espionage within the FBI. This courage is one of the most important steps taken to protect America's security. Thank you, Your Honor, but I'm still very sorry. Regret is the first step of healing. But remember, we have a very long process ahead. FBI internal security, CIA, NSA, probably even the President himself will be informed of this situation. I know, and I'm ready. I have nothing left to hide. Caprio looked at Thompson one last time. Mr. Thompson, today in this courtroom you not only cleaned your conscience, but also took a very important step in protecting your country's security. I hope I can make amends, Your Honor. I want to be a father my children can look in the face. I believe you will. But now there are urgent things that need to be done. Caprio returned to his desk and picked up the phone. The first call was to FBI Internal Security. Please connect me to the FBI Internal Security Division. Emergency situation. Yes, Judge Caprio calling. I have critical information about Agent Marcus Thompson. Thompson was trembling as he heard these conversations. There was no turning back now. I'll make the second call to the CIA, said Caprio. Then NSA, Homeland Security. All security units must know this information. Your Honor, how soon will they arrive? This place will probably be filled with federal agents within an hour. Be ready. Caprio turned to the other people in the courtroom. Since this hearing contains classified information, you cannot share what you heard here today with anyone. A federal gag order is being implemented. The law students and observers in the hall nodded. They were aware that they were witnessing a historic moment. Mr. Thompson, would you like to talk to your family one last time? Because you may not see them for a long time now. Thompson's eyes filled. Yes, please. Caprio extended his phone. Thompson called his wife with trembling hands. Sarah, it's Marcus. Yes, I'm in court. No, I won't be coming home. Sarah, listen to me carefully. Take the children right now and go to your mother's house. No, I can't explain over the phone. Trust me, I love you. When he hung up the phone, he was crying. How will I explain to them the truth? Difficult but necessary. Just then the courtroom door opened. 3 people in black suits entered. FBI badges were shining. Judge Caprio, Agent Johnson, FBI Internal Security. We came to take Agent Thompson. This was expected. But first I need to tell you something. Caprio briefly explained the situation to the FBI agents. The agents' faces gradually paled. Agent Thompson, I'm going to read you your rights. No need, said Thompson. I'll fully cooperate. As Thompson stood up, he turned to Caprio. Your Honor, thank you for the humanity you showed me in this courtroom. If it had been another judge, we might never have learned anything. This was your courage. Mr. Thompson, I just asked the right questions. As FBI agents handcuffed Thompson, other figures began entering the courtroom. CIA agents, NSA representatives, even Secret Service members. Judge Caprio, said an elderly CIA agent, we need to report this information to Washington immediately. The entire Security Council, including the President, must be informed. Of course, I've prepared all necessary files. Thompson paused at the door and turned back one last time. Your Honor, do you think history will remember today? I'm sure, Mr. Thompson, this wasn't just a traffic case. It was a nation's awakening. Asterisk the operation that began after Thompson's confessions turned into the biggest cleanup in FBI history. A special task force formed in Washington began screening every security unit. A week later, the Miami Herald ran the headline, "FBI agent's confession leads to capture of 12 other spies thanks to the clues Thompson provided." Other double agents were indeed identified one by one. The agent codenamed Eagle was in the CIA, Lion in the NSA, and Hawk was serving in the Pentagon. 2 weeks later, the president held a press conference in Washington. The American people must know how infiltrated our security systems have been, but they must also see that the system has the capacity to clean itself. Thompson was being held under protection in federal prison. Thanks to his cooperation, he received a 20-year sentence instead of life imprisonment. He was given the right to call his family once a day. 3 months later, Dmitry Volkov was captured by Interpol in Germany. The extradition process began. Caprio's courtroom had now become legendary. It was taught as a case study in law schools. How to find truth by asking the right questions. Caprio himself was very affected by this event. He began thinking about retirement. "I've been a judge for 40 years, but I've had such a case once in my life. Maybe it's time to end my career at this peak." Thompson's story entered law books with the title "The Traffic Stop That Saved America." In a security assessment conducted 6 months later, it was determined that 47 potential security vulnerabilities had been closed. Thanks to Thompson's information, Sarah Thompson said in an interview with a news channel, "My husband did terrible things, but his finally doing the right thing is the only reason I can be proud with my children." A year later, Caprio was presiding over his last hearing in the same courtroom. He was going to retire. After the hearing ended, he stood at his desk and looked around. He had made thousands of decisions in this hall, touched thousands of people's lives, but the Thompson case would always be special. As he left through the door, he thought, sometimes the biggest truths are hidden among the smallest lies. A judge's job is to find and expose those truths. In the Miami Herald archives, that day's headline still stood: Judge Caprio's final masterpiece, simple traffic case saved America, and a small plaque hung on the courtroom wall in this hall. On March 21, 2023, the power of the right questions was proven. Judge Frank Caprio Thompson was still under protection in prison, but in his letters, he wrote, "Judge Caprio didn't just show me justice, he gave me back my conscience. I'm in prison, but for the first time I'm truly free."